Good morning, everybody. As I mentioned, my name is Samuel O'Banion. I'm the associate pastor, your esteemed associate pastor. A few differences from a normal week. Usually there's a guy up here that's far less handsome and well less red, and like red, R-E-A-D. I'm not like red. And he's not luscious hair. He's bald. And he uses most importantly, he uses a thing here. I like handhelds. And he also uses a table. I use this. But anyway, my name is Sam, and you're stuck with me for the next 3 weeks as we talk about Unresolved. Unresolved is the series we're doing. It's learning from the life of Absalom. And it's just really, it's something that I've been working on for a few months, and it's something I'm really excited about. Absalom's a great story in the Bible. He's a great example of a lot of human emotion, a lot of human things that we encounter every day. And I chose Unresolved because, man, we seem to live this life, and we try our hardest, we do what we can, but ultimately, when you lay down at night, like, have you ever felt like a puzzle? Like you're in a box, you know what you're supposed to look like, you have a picture of what you're supposed to look like, the Bible spells out what you're supposed to look like, but you're still unfinished, you're still not put together, you're still unresolved. And that's what this whole series will be about. And so before I start this lesson, or before I start this sermon, I want to talk to you guys, like, the Bible's racy. Like, I don't know if you've ever read the Bible or if you've never cracked it open or anything like that, but the Bible's full of crazy stories. There's, like, sexual assault, there's, murder, there's theft, there's almost any sin you can imagine. The Bible has some story about it. And so if you could hit that next slide, boom. I just need to point that out. Parental advisory, it's recommended, okay? I made sure to put that out. I don't know if you were like me. When I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to buy anything that had that little advisory because it meant there was naughty things in it. And that's what's going to happen. This week, it's full of parental advisory stuff because the story of Absalom is full of just these terrible events and these crazy things that happen. And I love the story of Absalom because it's filled with just fun tidbits of knowledge that you can take away from it. For instance, in chapter 14, I'm not going to put this in a sermon, but it's a really fun fact. Absalom was a beautiful man, and he had luscious hair. I mean, just beautiful. To the point where he didn't want to cut it. He only cut it once a year, and when he cut it, they weighed his hair, and his hair weighed 5 pounds. Like, that's a fact that's in 2 Samuel. That's like, for the rest of history, Absalom's hair will weigh 5 pounds. Like, it's amazing. And so there's all sorts of fun things in the Bible, or in this story specifically, that are like that, where you just are like, 5 pounds of hair? That's insane. And so I recommend reading 2 Samuel 13 through 18. That's the chapters. Read ahead, and I'll catch you up in the next 3 weeks. But there's just all sorts of crazy things that happen in here. And it's going to be a blast. I'm so excited. So we're going to jump into 2 Samuel. But first, I want to tell you why the announcements were a little crazy and why I am exhausted. You guys know the phrase, when it rains, it pours, which is kind of, if you think about it, dumb. Like, that's not a great saying because this saying should just be like, when it rains, it rains. Like, there's rain. Because sometimes it sprinkles, sometimes it mists, sometimes rain is a good thing. My yard is dead, and now it is not. Hurrah. So when it rains, it pours is dumb. But what it means is like, when it rains, it pours means, hey, it's bad, but it's going to be worse. Like, it might be, you think this is bad? Well, it's going to be worse. And so my whole week was like, hey, it's raining. And then it was just like, oh no, it's pouring. And so my father-in-law was admitted to the hospital. He had a heart stent put in, and then 2 days later, we went to Kansas City for my mother-in-law who had surgery in her neck, and so I was working from a hospital most days this week. And so, like, I went to lunch with these 4 lovely people here, and totally, like, I thought that was like 2 weeks ago. Like, it's so crazy. And so, yeah, when it rains, it pours. And, you know, there's a bunch of sayings that I don't like. There's a few that are okay. They're called colloquialisms, or it's like a turn of phrase. I guess not really that. But anyway, so like, when in Rome, that's good. Like, when in Rome, do as the Romans. You know, that's a good saying. A stitch in time saves 9. That's fun. Like, it's a knitting quote. Melissa, you probably know what that is. But But does anybody, do you know what I'm talking about? Like those phrases that you're like, what is this? Why would you say that? That doesn't mean anything. Does anybody, am I the only one? I'm the only one. Okay, but still, I'm going to talk about this. So a couple, no use crying over spilt milk. That's dumb. Cry over spilt milk. The saying is, it means, don't sweat the small stuff. You just spill a little milk. No, don't cry over it. I love milk. When I was in 5th grade, I started running track, and my mom was afraid that I was going to wither into nothing because I weighed 80 pounds soaking wet. And so she was like, that might be a lot for a 5th grader. I don't remember. But anyway, so she gave me whole milk. And so from 5th grade to my senior year, I had a glass of whole milk almost every day, probably more than once a day. I love milk, and so I'm going to cry over milk. I love milk. I'm going to be upset if I spill my milk. And honestly, even the premise, don't sweat the small stuff. That's kind of dumb too, because, we even talked about that last week, the whole idea of unstuck. It's the small things that bring your faith down. And so really, there's times where maybe you should sweat the small stuff. The small stuff adds up. And so to me, that's no, maybe. Maybe you should cry over some spilt milk. One that you're going to disagree with that I think is not great. Money can't buy happiness. That's dumb. Money can. Let's be honest. It can't buy you, family or eternity in heaven, whatever. It can't buy you those things. But it can absolutely buy you a dash of happiness. If I'm sad and I buy, I don't know, something I want. I'm 25. If I buy an Xbox, that's going to bring me a little happiness. I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of you have, or some of you have boats. If you bought a nicer boat, you're not going to be oh, no, I can't believe I bought a nicer boat. You're going to be happy about that. Money can absolutely buy you happiness. It can't buy you eternal things. It can't buy you love or joy or things like this. But it can absolutely, and happiness is overrated. Let's be honest. If you tell me, that's another one. I just want you to be happy. Man, you must not like me. Because, happiness is a low bar to shoot for. I want so much more for the people I love in my life. If I just want you to be happy, man, I don't think a lot of you, just be happy, whatever. Don't do that. I want more for you. And so money can't buy happiness. Yeah, it can buy happiness. And so the last one I'm going to talk about, love is blind. No, that's stupid. We talked about this last week. I think David mentioned it last week, how Romeo and Juliet really is, people are oh, it's so romantic. But really, it's just two dumb, irrational kids that freak out. It's hey, just calm down. Just, grow up, figure it out. You're 14, you'll get over it. So love is blind if you believe in Romeo and Juliet being romantic, but it's not so much if you're realistic. And I don't know, if you've ever dated someone or if you're married, when you're dating, love is of course blind at first, right? Because you're in the moment and you're I don't know, you say things man, I love how my girlfriend points out the speed limit on every road we drive on. So cute, so adorable. And then you've been together a couple months, and you're I know, okay? I know how fast it is. I know how fast I'm going. You don't have to point it out every time. I know what the speed limit is. Stop pointing it out to me. I know. But then you get pulled over, and you don't dare look at the passenger seat because you're I know if I look over and she's smiling or laughing, I'm going, I'm leaving this vehicle. I'm just going to punch the cop and, arrest me. Get me out of this place. It's far better than the repercussions I'm going to face at home. Just don't do it. So the saying really should be, love is blind. You can go to the next slide because I forgot. Love is blind at first, but wait until you're married because anger is blinder. That's really what the saying should be because, let's be honest, it's great. Oh, yeah, love is blind at first, for sure. But then you get married and you're oh, no, I could be a lot angrier. This could be significantly worse than anything. I love my wife. She's adorable. She's wonderful. But, man, if I'm angry, there's nothing that she can do. None of the positive traits that I married her for will help me see better. I'm going to be blind angry no matter what she does. Because when I'm angry, I'm angry. Nothing can get in the way of that. And that's, we've all been there, right? We've all been angry before. You've all been blind angry. You've all had blind anger. Whether it's, a spouse says something to you, and you're just I can't, why would you say that? And then you say something back, you clap back, like David said last week, or you fire back something quick without thinking, a hasty thought, and then you're going back and forth, and suddenly you're both upset, and it's been hours, and you don't even remember what started this, but you were just blind to everything because you're angry. I'm not a parent. I'm not a father yet. Still not one on the way either, but should clarify that when I say yet. But I'm a youth minister, and so I can absolutely see a scenario where you are sitting at a kitchen table and you look your child in the eye and go, you have to leave. You're in real physical harm. Get out of my face. Like, I can understand that being a thing that happens as a parent. Like, you're blind with anger because of something that's happening in front of you. I worked 2 years of retail before I got here, and so I understand coworkers. Man, coworkers can drive you up the wall. I can't tell you how many times somebody has done something and I've covered for them, and I end up in trouble somehow. Or somebody does something wrong, and so it makes my job that much harder. And I'm standing in an aisle in Hobby Lobby trying to fix a mistake, and it's midnight. I understand coworkers messing up, and you're just getting blind with rage over this. Luckily, that's not something I deal with now. Tim, thanks. High five, Becky. What's up? Or bosses. That's something we deal with now. Am I right? Just kidding. David's great. Anyway, so yeah, bosses. Again, 2 years of retail. Like, I understand the feeling of you're working hard, you're trying your best, and it seems like your boss is doing everything possible to be incompetent. Like, it's just, you're just angry, and you just can't believe that this man is in charge of what you do and what you have to say about this store. And so the question is, like, what happens when we have this anger, right? There's really two things that anger does. It either consumes you completely and you just blow up, right? It's just consuming and you yell out. Or you try your best to squelch it and push it down deep into your heart and you just, whatever, I'll get over it. I'll get past this situation. But that only works for a little bit, right? I mean, if you're consumed, that's a quick thing. But man, if you push it down, if you try and swallow that stays there. That doesn't resolve. That goes unresolved. That's staying within the depths of your heart. And I don't know if you're like me, but that grows. That keeps going. If I get angry, I'm going to get angrier the next time at this situation or this person. And it just keeps going and it keeps going. And at some point you think, man, what happens when I get angry with all this built up? Will I take it out on my kids? Will I take it out on my spouse? Will I take it out on my coworkers, my boss, myself? Like, what do we do with this anger that wells up inside of us? What do we do with this anger that's consuming? What do we do with this anger that's unresolved? How do we manage it? This unresolved consuming anger, this unresolved squashed anger. What do we do? So I think fortunately for us, we have this great example in Absalom's life, right? We have 2 Samuel 13. That's where we're going to be all morning. I'm not going to read all 39 verses because it's 39 verses, but I'm going to hit the highlights, give you some cliff notes, and we're going to hit some important ones along the way. So 2 Samuel 13, it starts off, King David, big wig King David. King David is all, 1 and 2 Samuel is all about King David and a little bit of the kings. He's a big figurehead in Israel in the Bible. He has a son. His firstborn son is Amnon. Okay, Amnon's born to King David. He's the heir to the throne, and he is in love with this woman named Tamar. He loves Tamar. Tamar is beautiful. She's a good cook. She's the whole package to Amnon. The problem is Tamar is his half sister, and his brother Absalom's full sister. Okay, so he has his half sister and Absalom's full sister. He's in love with this woman. And so he's so in love with her that he's sick over this. He is like physically ill over the love he has for his half-sister Tamar. And so his cousin Jonadab gives him the suggestion. He's like, look, I'm tired of seeing you this way. How about you pretend to be sick and have Tamar come and cook for you? She's a great cook. She makes a good stew. If you're sick, she'll come and cook for you, and that's when you can tell her this. You can spring this on her. And so that's exactly what Amnon does. He pretends to be sick. He tells King David, look, I need my sister Tamar. I need that classic beef stew that she makes. It's wonderful for the stomach. I'm sick. Please send her over. So Tamar's over, and she's cooking, and Amnon sends everybody out of his house except Tamar. So it's just Amnon and Tamar, and that's when he forces himself upon her. And that's where Tamar says this in verses 12 and 13. No, my brother, do not violate me, for such a thing is not done in Israel. Do not do this outrageous thing. As for me, where could I carry my shame? And as for you, you would be as one of the outrageous fools in Israel. Now there, please speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you. So she's begging her brother here, like, look, don't do this thing. This is like the worst thing you could possibly do. This is incestuous rape. Like, please do not do this thing. Like, in this time period, in this place, virginity was like the keystone for a woman. That was like the best thing she could offer somebody was her virginity. And so she's saying, like, where could I go? Like, I don't have this thing anymore, and it was taken from me by my brother. Like, I can't, like, where do you want me to go after you do this? And as for you, you'd be the worst of us. You'd be the most outrageous idiot in all the country. And she even says, she bargains, she's like, hey, look, if you go to our father, if you go to the king and just ask, he's not going to say no. Like, he will let us get married. Just don't do this. But then the next verse says this, but he would not listen to her. And so this thing is done. Amnon does this terrible thing. He's an outrageous fool, which is putting it nicely. And what's crazy is after this, the Bible says he hates her more than he originally loved her. He hates her more than he originally had loved her. And so he kicks her out of his house. And she's like, Amnon, this is worse than the first thing. Like, this is even worse. And he would not listen to her all the more. And so she runs out crying, weeping. She tears her clothes, which is what you did back in the day if you were upset beyond being consoled. She ripped her clothes, and she's running. And her brother Absalom eventually catches up to her. And that's where it says in verses 20 through 22. And her brother Absalom said to her, has Amnon, your brother, been with you? Now hold your peace, my sister. He is your brother. Do not take this to heart. So Tamar lived a desolate woman in her brother Absalom's house. And you can hold there for a second. So Absalom's this gracious dude, right? Like, I don't know how he knows that it was Amnon, but he's like, has he done this to you? And she doesn't even answer in the Bible. And so I imagine she's trying to. And he just says, try and find some peace. Try and take a breath, calm down. Like, he's your brother. Don't take this too personally. Don't take it too hard. He just loves you. And so he offers up his home to his full sister to live because she doesn't have the one thing she needs to get married now. She's lost that. And so she's going to live. She lives a desolate woman. She lives alone. She lives by herself with her brother Absalom in their home. And so Absalom's this gracious man, right? Absalom's like, he's full of grace towards Amnon. He's full of grace towards Tamar. He's like, no, just don't take it to heart, and you can stay with me. But then go to the next verse. When King David heard of all these things, he was very angry. But Absalom spoke to Amnon neither good nor bad, for Absalom hated Amnon because he had violated his sister Tamar. So naturally, King David's upset, right? King David is furious. King David is very angry, as you should be. But Absalom is so angry that he hates Amnon, and he doesn't even speak to his brother. He's completely cut off ties with Amnon. So King David's angry, but man, Absalom's beyond that. Absalom's done with Amnon. He's washed his hands of this person. And so the next verse, the next thing we see is and it says 2 full years, not that yet, sorry. It says, and it had been 2 full years in verse 23 since this act had happened, which is crazy. 2 full years, that's like 2015. So a lot of time has passed. Like, I can't remember 2015. And so 2 years have passed since this event happened. And Absalom is a successful shepherd. He has a home. And so he throws out an invitation. He says, King David, why don't you come out to me? Why don't you come and all your sons, and we'll have a party at my house. We'll celebrate. We'll have a good time. King David's like, we don't want to be a burden. I'm not going to burden you with this. And so he said, I'm not going to do it. And Absalom presses him. And David says all the more, no, I'm not going to come out. And so Absalom finally is like, okay, then send my brothers. Just send Amnon and my brothers, and we'll all together have a celebration, all the brothers. And David's not sure, but Absalom presses him. And so David sends all of his sons to Absalom's house. And that's where we learn what Absalom's plan is. And he says this. Mark when Amnon's heart is merry with wine, and when I say to you, strike Amnon, then kill him. Do not fear. Have I not commanded you? Be courageous and be valiant. He's talking to one of his servants here, and his servants agree. His servants have been commanded by their master to kill Amnon, and Amnon's killed. So Absalom has struck down Amnon, his brother, and all the brothers naturally begin to freak out and worry. To them, this might have been a power play for the throne, and so they scatter. And a messenger leaves, and the message gets scattered, but it gets to King David that all of his sons have been killed. Okay? All of his sons are dead. And so he begins to weep, and he weeps. But his nephew, Jonadab, says to him, "This is wrong, but Amnon alone is dead. For by the command of Absalom, this has been determined from the day he violated his sister Tamar." So from there, Absalom flees. Absalom leaves for a land called Geshur, and it says of King David that he wept bitterly for Amnon. But in verse 39, it's the last verse of the chapter, it says, "And the spirit of the king longed to go out to Absalom because he was comforted about Amnon since he was dead." So I know that was a lot of information, but I just really wanted to give you the whole story, the whole picture of what is happening here in Absalom's life. This is one of the first mentions of Absalom in the whole situation. And so there's the two types of anger here, and I think one is clear, right? One is obvious. Absalom was consumed with anger, and consumed absolutely, right? He was so angry that he hated his brother, would not speak to him, and for 2 years plotted how to murder him. He planned out how to murder his brother for 2 years. And it makes me also wonder, he wanted King David there. I wonder if he either wanted to kill Amnon in front of his father, or if he also wanted to kill King David. Like, it makes you wonder, why did he want King David there also, as well as the sons? Was his anger that bright that he wanted to take out everybody? And so Absalom's anger was consuming. Did you catch the other one? Did you catch, we briefly touched on this anger that you just push down. You let it rest and you push it into your heart. King David was angry. He was very angry. He was furious. King David was furious that his son would do this to his daughter. But for all we know, he did nothing about it. There's nothing in the Bible. We know that Absalom plotted for 2 years. We know that. But we have no idea if David just punished him or just let him go. We have no idea what David did to Amnon. And it makes you think that he probably just let him be. Right? He pushed that anger down. He said, "It's my son. What am I going to do? I've already lost Absalom. He's fled. Or I already lost a daughter, essentially. And so, I'm not going to worry about Amnon." And so he pushes that anger down. But what it does is it turns him into this, it turns him into an inactive person. It turns him to bitterness, to the point where when his son dies, he longs for the murderer and is comforted over Amnon. He's comforted over the death of his son because that's how much anger he had over Amnon. He hated Amnon and what he had done, so he was comforted by his death. So there's two types of unresolved anger, just consuming and disabling. So I think what we learn from this is that unresolved anger annihilates. I know that's a strong word, but truly it does. Unresolved anger annihilates, whether it takes you completely over, transforms you into a person you don't know or you don't like, or you push it into your depths and it changes you into a calloused and pitiless person. Anger annihilates families and relationships and individuals. Unresolved anger annihilates jobs and opportunities and faith. Anger annihilates completely. It's controlling, it's blinding. It's like a wildfire in a dry forest. It'll take you completely over when left unresolved. So the real questions are, in your life, where are you Absalom and where are you David? Right? Where are you Absalom and where are you David? Where are you, have you just washed your hands of resolving the issue and you're like, I'm just going to be mad. I'm just allowing myself here to be angry at this. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to be consumed. Or, you know what? No matter how I deal with this person, I get angry. So I'm just going to keep putting on a happy face and put it away. I'm just going to keep pushing it down, pushing it off. Let it be unresolved. Maybe it's, my spouse or my ex, they do this and that to my kids. They say this to me. I can't take it anymore. My kids, they're ungrateful. They're selfish. They're annoying. I don't know what to do with them. I just want to push them down. Man, my coworkers are inconsiderate. They're backstabbers. They're lazy. I don't know if I can stay at this job, and I don't know what I can do with them. I cannot believe my boss had the audacity to say that to me. How dare him? How dare her? How dare they do this to me? Where are you, Absalom? And where are you, David? And I want to add a third, and that's, where are you, Jesus, in your anger? Where are you, Jesus, in your anger? Christ, our Christ said specifically in Matthew 5:20-22, I don't think I have that up there, do I? I don't think so. He says about anger, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says, you fool, will be liable to the hell of fire. And so that's called the Sermon on the Mount, and then Jesus lived his life, and at the end of this perfect, well-lived life, he's beaten and tortured. He's hung on a cross, and he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He had every right to be angry. He was mutilated for nothing, for trumped-up charges. He had the full power of deity. He had the fullness of God in him. It had the full opportunity to break the cross in half and just crush some heads. But instead he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And so where are we, Absalom? And where are you, David? And where are you, Jesus? Where do you allow your anger to be all-consuming? Where do you take your anger and you just push it down and you allow it to turn your empathy into apathy? And where are you, Jesus? Where are you giving your grace abundantly as it has been given to you? And I wonder what would happen if we, all as individuals, looked at these moments in our lives and we faced the anger that we have within us and we made an honest change. And what would happen to our church as a whole if we together recognized this anger and turned it outward? What if we as a church said, man, I'm tired. I'm tired of blowing up. I'm tired of yelling at these people. I'm tired of leaving work just angry, punching the steering wheel because I can't yell at anybody there. I'm tired of going to bed just angry at my kids, at my wife, at my husband. I'm just tired of this. I want to give grace abundantly. Now, we're going to take communion here in a couple minutes, but I want to tell you what I would imagine. What I imagine if we look at the question, what would we as a congregation look like if we didn't let anger annihilate the opportunities that we have to be Jesus to someone, right? What would our congregation look like if in the moments that cause us the most anger, that instead of letting it go unresolved, that we face the challenge of it and we allow ourselves to be Jesus to someone in our lives that causes us anger? Like I said, I can only imagine. We'd have this congregation that was filled with generous, compassionate, and empathetic people, right? We would be the church known for generosity. We'd be the church known for empathy and compassion. We'd be the church known for handing out grace like it's a free gift that you get when you order like something on TV. It's like, oh, you get one for free. That's how our grace is here. We would be that kind of church. We'd be taking pride out of the equation and filling that void with love. You know, instead of taking the route of Absalom and allowing the anger to consume us, we would have people that generously gave of themselves to correct and rebuke behavior, even behavior so abhorrent that it's not even on the map of our morality. If instead of going the route of David and pushing the anger down into the deep recesses of our heart and being transformed by it, we would allow compassion and empathy to overflow our broken vessels so that the people who look to tear our lives apart would find in the pieces nothing but the splinters of the cross that our God had died on. Unresolved anger annihilates. But we have this amazing power to allow it or to stop it. And the Spirit of God that Jesus brought with him to earth, that can dwell within us and can allow, if you allow it, it can change It can change you. It can change this. It can stop this. The Holy Spirit that resides within us beckons us to live a life apart from this anger that annihilates. It calls us to a life worthy of the phrase, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So in this time of communion, it's just an amazing opportunity to come to the cross. Like I always say, whether it's the first time or the 100th time, you have the opportunity to annihilate the annihilator. You have the opportunity to come to Jesus and just, God, I'm just so tired. I'm so tired of blowing up. I'm so tired of being angry and leaving this unresolved. Unresolved anger can annihilate you. Unresolved anger annihilates. But the good news is God is really good at broken puzzles. Like he can absolutely put the pieces back together. And all you have to do is commit, like a little bit. Just say, Jesus, I need that. Like I need you to take me out of the box and put me together so I can know what to look like. I need you to resolve this anger that I have within me. All you have to do is get into some water and get pushed under. All you have to do is be baptized. If you're interested in any next step, whether it's decisions you might have made or maybe you just want to pray like, man, I'm angry over this specific situation and I need prayer with it. We have those connection cards. You can fill them out and throw them in the basket. If you have any offering, you can throw that in there too. But we're about to pray and take communion. And I pray that he opens up your eyes to the anger in your life, to these situations that are causing you to be annihilated. Because the thing is, like, anger is something that you're allowed to feel if it's righteous, right? Jesus felt righteous anger. He drove people out of a temple with a whip. Like, anger is something when it's directed well is allowed. The problem is most of the time we don't have this righteous anger and we allow the anger to be unresolved. We don't seek out a resolution. We just think, I shouldn't be angry, and we push it away. And so the problem is when we don't have that resolution. And Ephesians 4:25-27 says this. Therefore, having put away falsehood, let each one of you speak the truth with his neighbor, for we are members one of another. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger and give no opportunity to the devil. So resolve it. Figure it out. Confront the issue. Don't let your anger go unresolved. Don't let the sun go down on your anger and give the devil, give the world, give the opportunity to become Absalom and David a foothold. Because unresolved anger annihilates. Unresolved anger annihilates. So let's pray. Father God, I am just so happy that you found a way to have this horrible story written down so that we can learn from it. God, I pray that this was not me, that these weren't my words. This was all you. God, because you are the words of life. You're the way, the truth, and life. God, I just pray that we can leave this week, and when confronted with angry issues, when confronted with anger that we want to just push away or blow up at, God, that we can just leave those moments or we can be in those moments and we can seek out a resolution. That we won't blow up like Absalom, that we won't push it away like David, but we'll seek it out like Jesus, and we won't let the sun go down on our anger. God, we love you, and we pray these things in your name. Amen.